Hi, so this is going to start a Final Cut Pro 7 lecture, and it is going to be awesome. I would teach Final Cut Pro X, except that Final Cut Pro X is a piece of shit that should never exist. Okay, moving on. So first I'm clicking on the Final Cut Pro icon in the dock. Fairly standard procedure. You're going to edit this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Balls!
No, I'm not going to
Okay.
edit it. I'm not going to edit it.
So the first thing that happens is we need to reset the scratch disks. Basically, the Final Cut file is a reference file, and it kind of spiders throughout the computer trying to find all the video clips or media in general that we will eventually collect and start to work with. And the scratch disks is just a special set of folders that we need to create that stores all of that media. So I'm going to reset scratch disks. And basically the way it works is either you make a brand new set, or you find scratch disks that exist previously and you just reset them to that. Now this looks complicated, it's actually kind of simple. We're just going to go to this button here, set, this button here, set, this one, and we're going to click on them. That's going to open up a file path, and then we then send everything to the same file path. So set. Let's see, normally you do this either to the computer's hard drive somewhere or to an external drive. I'm setting it to this guy called Spider J. And oh, okay, I actually have some files here already, so I'm just going to hit choose. Yeah, shut up. And then, okay, that part. Yeah, so in this case I'm just automatically dumping everything onto the Spider J drive. Just because. This drive already has folders on it, already has scratch disk folders, so I didn't have to create anything. After I've reset those three, I hit OK and continue. And then the interface can open. Normally when you're taking a hard drive and moving it from one computer to another, you'll have to reset the scratch disks in order to reconnect the media. Ideally you would have the project kind of on the hard drive, like everything's there. Okay, here we go. Oh, wow, I do sound formal.
Which is good.
Alright, so here we have
Wait till you hear your voice on the recording.
So here we have the Final Cut Pro 7 interface. I have been using this program since I was 16, back when I was using Final Cut 3. This thing has barely changed. There have been very subtle tweaks, but if you were to look at those two interfaces back to back, you would not tell the difference right away. There are four primary windows in this interface, and this is also the case with most video editors. You have the browser, the viewer, the timeline, and the canvas. Now, the browser pretty much exists for the sole purpose of showing us a library of all the clips and media that we want to manipulate, and through the browser we can sort through them, place them in folders, organize them, and rename them. In the viewer, we pretty much use this box for the sole purpose of looking at an individual piece of media. The viewer is where we actually play it, actually look at it, and start to edit minor things about this particular clip. Once we're done working within the viewer, we go down to the timeline, and the timeline is where we dump the clips, and it is where we start editing the clips relative to each other. Once everything's on the timeline, we go back up here to the canvas, and the canvas is just another media playing box that exists for the sole purpose of showing us what the timeline looks like. So that is the breakdown of what this looks like. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import some media. Everything okay so far?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So we are going to import some media. This is done a handful of different ways. I am simply going to click on Finder, go into this drive where I know I have crap already, and I'm just going to drag and drop. Oh, what's something good? This is. Let's see if this one I can import. I'm just dragging it in for now. Alright, so I now have this fun little clip that I've placed inside my browser. Thing about the browser is you can organize clips. When I right-click and hit New Bin, I get this new little folder thing right here that says Bin 1. I'm going to name it something that doesn't make any sense. And then I'm going to place this clip inside the bin. And the little arrow lets me like go in and see what's inside and turn it off as well. Now you might be wondering what this guy over here is. That is a sequence, and basically what the deal is with that is you can have multiple timeline projects open. So this sequence here represents just one of these timelines. I can right-click, make a new one, and it's just a new sequence down here, so I can place a completely different set of clips on that timeline. I'm going to get rid of this thing for now. Somehow. There. So, that's it. Alright, so I'm going to take a look at this clip, and I'm going to bring it to the viewer by double-clicking on it. On the icon. So now we have this clip over here, and you can see that these two blue bars just showed up over here, so it turns out that the clip is a lot larger than this box is allowing. So I'm going to come up to this icon over here that says 50%, and I'm going to select Fit to Window. And we can see why here.
So you put it into viewer by double clicking it?
Yep. Put it into the viewer by double clicking, and then it was a little too big, so I reset the image to fit to that particular window. And then, okay, fun facts. So this little, this tiny little yellow triangle over here right above the mouse, that is our playhead. And the playhead is essentially the marker that indicates what frame the little box is showing you at the moment. When I hit the space bar, the whole thing just plays. You'll see the playhead moving. And this media that I have just imported will start to run. If I hit the space bar again, I can pause it. So, let's see. So other controls inside the viewer include pressing the L button to go forward, tapping the L button a bunch of times to make it fast forward. I hit K to pause it. I click J to start to go backwards. I hit J a bunch of times in order to rewind a little faster. K to stop again. That's just one of the sets of controls that are at your disposal of maneuvering through this interface. The other option is to use the arrow keys, and if you hit them left and right, you can advance or go back in this interface by one frame at a time. So if you ever needed to identify an individual frame, that is how you would do it. Alright, so that's how you navigate the timeline in here. That's how you navigate the viewer as far as looking through the clip. Here's why this is really important. As you are going through this clip, and you can obviously see this is a big clip, 3 minutes I think, you can set in points and out points. Now the playhead is over here. You can do this by pressing I, but I'm going to click on this button over here to create an in point. And then I'm going to hit the space bar, let the clip advance a little bit. I just want his keys typing and this little thing up here. Add space again. I didn't want to go that far, so I'm using the arrow keys to clip back until I'm here. And now I press this button, or I hit the O key. This is an out point. And you'll notice that here on the miniature timeline, I now have this little whited out piece of text in between the 2 points. Basically, I have just selected this little segment and isolated away everything else that the clip has. I'm going to take the mouse in the center of this frame, click and hold, and then drag down to my timeline. You'll notice that these three little gray boxes come in and my mouse has turned into a downward pointing arrow. I'm going to bring it down until they meet and until they are solid, because you'll notice that they can be not filled out over here. Bring it down, solid. When I let go, this little icon shows up asking me if I want the timeline, the timeline's canvas, to match the dimensions of the clip in question. And by dimensions, I mean aspect ratio, how many pixels wide by how many pixels tall is the clip itself, and what is the frame rate of the clip. So it's asking me if I just want the timeline over here to just adapt to what the footage already is, and I'm going to say yes.
We're back!
Last time on the Final Cut 7 tutorial. Shit happened. Watch the first part. Okay, moving on. So last time we were at the point where our clip was selected. We're using a different clip this time because there were problems with the old one. I am setting in points. I am setting out points. You'll notice that I'm now using the mouse to move them around because I feel like it. And I think this thing has my voice next to it, so be prepared to just listen to way too much me. Alright, so I have these two clips selected. I click and I drag my clip down. Everything's selected. I get this icon. I hit yes. All's good. And my clip appears down here in the timeline. Now, you'll notice that the timeline also has this little yellow playhead up here, and you'll notice that my canvas now shows this section of clip. Now, because that I've clicked on the timeline right now, once I hit the arrow keys back and forth, if I were to hit, there we go. If I hit the arrow keys back and forth, if I hit J, K, and L, I will actually start to manipulate the footage in the timeline the exact same way I could manipulate it in the canvas. The difference is I have more options now, and I can see it relative to other clips. Now, if we will look down here, our clip has this blue section, which I turned brown, and this green section that I just turned brown. The blue section is our video clip, whereas the green section is our audio. The blue clip is our video, the green clip is our audio. And you can separate them, you can manipulate them a little bit, but first things first, there's something I'm going to fix. Now you'll notice up here there's a little red line. Now what this line means is that something has to be rendered. And because there's a very faint gray line right above the red line, that indicates to me that the red line is actually for the audio track. So the audio needs to be rendered, and the video is fine. So I'm just going to hit play and see what happens when audio needs rendering. My god, it's art. Alright, so I'm just going to do that there. Yeah. So when audio needs rendering, there's a few ways to do it. The complex way is to go all the way up to sequence, render selection, and I can either render both video and audio, just the video, or just the audio. And I click on those and things will render. My preferred method is to do the keyboard shortcut, which is Command R. And it will bitch a little bit at me, but then this window will pop up and the audio will render. And there we go, it's rendered. So let's see what this clip actually sounds like.
For years he has fought for the forces of good. His exploits are legend across the known galaxy and beyond.
That sounds like a horrible movie. Okay, moving on. Alright, so that is our little clip, and that is our audio. So now that we have this in the timeline, the big question becomes, what can we do with it? Well, here's a few options. I'm going to... Yeah, so here's a few options. What I like to do with this point is I come over here to my little tool palette, and I click on the little razor tool. Once I click on the razor tool, I bring my mouse way back over here, and when I come back to the footage, my mouse now looks like a blade. And there's a little arrow running around the footage. If I click, I have now split the footage into two separate pieces.
Isn't so bad as the first one. Yeah.
And the keyboard shortcut for this is hit the B to turn it into a blade, and hit A to go back to the arrow that we know and love. Now if I click on this piece of footage, and just hover the mouse over it, and click and hold, I can move it around. I can put it here, I can put it there, I can just move it anywhere, and if I were to move the playhead in between the two clips, I would just get a piece of black. So that's awesome. I can also take this end over here, just click on the end of a piece of footage, click and hold if this mouse icon shows up, and I can stretch the footage out and stretch it back. Now what that does is, this piece of footage is not a self-contained separate entity. It is a reference to this piece of footage up here, which is of course a reference right back here. So even though I'm only seeing a fraction of the footage down here, the rest of it still exists up here. So I can just take this and recreate all the footage that was up there originally. Unfortunately, that might have to render again, so that's fixed. So that's one of the ways we can edit the duration of a clip. We can either use the razor tool, or we can use that little stretch option. And of course, using the arrow keys, you can pinpoint a precise frame. And of course, with the arrow keys, you can pinpoint a precise frame. Cut it. You need to go back to the arrow, click on this piece of footage, hit the delete key to get rid of it, and you have something more or less exactly what you would want to do with it. So, that is really basic footage manipulation in here, so I'm now going to show everyone what snapping looks like. Snapping is this really cool special awesome feature in Final Cut and a lot of editors that allows bits of footage or the playhead to just kind of very quickly connect together so there's no black spot in between and you don't cut a clip too soon. Now to demonstrate, I'm going to take this footage and I'm going to start dragging it over. Now I have snapping. Actually, I'll do this the other way. This button over here turns snapping off. Now you'll notice as I'm holding onto this piece of footage and I'm coming closer and closer to the other piece, if I want to bring this close to the point where there's no little black frame in between, I really can't tell where it is. I really have to guess, and I could cut out a handful of frames from the other clip, and once you're doing real precision editing, that's going to be obnoxious and tedious and really hazardous. I'm going to turn snapping on, and you will watch what happens when I drag the clip closer this time. Once I get close enough, the clip is going to snap to the other clip. No frames have been lost, and there is no black spot in between. So that's one thing snapping does. The other thing it does is it also snaps the playhead. So as I bring the playhead closer to the end of the piece of footage, it snaps to the very end. I'm going to bring the playhead over here, and as I bring this piece of footage closer and closer, this piece will snap to the playhead. So snapping can be used if you really need something to be precise, if you need a clip to start or end in a specific location, and you've used the arrow keys to place the playhead exactly where you need it, and now you need to use the mouse to move the keyboard over. And first things first, I'm going to go up here, I'm going to find, yeah, that's me. I'm going to find a different clip down here, going to render it. Awesome. And now that I've done that, the next thing, gotta figure out what next to do. Okay, so another fun fact is the notion of being able to layer footage on top of each other. And this is a really important concept. So I'm going to take this piece of footage, I'm getting it ready, and now I'm going to click, I'm going to drag up. And the first thing you'll notice is that the clip actually separates. It is still connected, but it now separates. Now you'll notice this line, this hard line over here, this pretty much separates all audio from all video. I'm going to drag this guy so he is now over the other video clip over here. Now, I'm going to turn the sound down a little bit so it doesn't become overpowering. What is about to happen is the playhead will go over. We will see the piece of footage that is under, and then once we go on to the double layer, we will only see the footage on top, but we will hear the audio from both tracks. Not that there was much there. I'm going to do this to get the point a little more.
Render the audio. Render the...
So that is what happens there, and you may be wondering, wow, what is the usefulness of that particular scenario? Well, the usefulness is you are filming a person giving a dynamic speech. It is a long speech, and you want to be able to cut away from them. Instead of setting up your camera so you're focused on one guy, he gives the speech, you tell him to stop. You focus on another guy, you tell the guy to continue the speech, you tell him to stop. You focus back on your first guy, and he finishes the speech. No, way too complicated. Instead, you just get a full shot of him finishing the speech, you get a reaction shot after he's done with it, and you just dump them on top of each other like this. It also gives you more flexibility in post. Okay, so, as one thing that we have the option of doing, what are some fun, ooh, there we go. So, we all know what a composite shot is, yeah? Okay. A composite shot is when you take two or more clips and you manipulate them in such a way that both of them appear on screen at the same time, normally to give a brand new effect. And a good example is actually right up here on the canvas with this footage that I manipulated several years ago. Obviously, there is no soda dispenser that says space soda on it. I actually created this image in Photoshop and used After Effects to kind of place it over. I think it was Mountain Dew or something equally disgusting. So that's a composite shot, and Final Cut is not really built to give you composite shots, but I'm going to show you how it sort of would work anyway. I'm going to double click on this clip over here, and I'm going to click on this button all the way in the bottom. Now what this thing does is it shows you the levels and keyframes of a clip. So I click on that, and we see this little white bar near the top. That is the opacity keyframe, which tells us how see-through this particular clip is. Right now it's set to 100, the default. I'm going to use the mouse, and I'm going to just drag it down to 56 and let go. Now, stuff like this will cause the video to render this time, so we're going to render the video, which always takes longer, so always be aware of that. So that is how we kind of manipulate the opacity. I'm going to bring it down a little more and render it again. Fun fact about the render, you can actually stop it hitting the cancel button halfway through, and it will still save all of the render that you have done up to that point, which that can be useful if you're sitting here with, say, a half-hour, 2-hour movie. You hit the render button, and it tells you it's going to take 3 hours, and you realize that you really need to check your email, and for whatever reason you're using so much processor speed that you can't do anything. You just hit cancel and work. So this isn't the best composite, but you can see my little character over here is really dark now, and when I advance the playhead just far enough, you can actually see the stars behind him. Again, it's not the best composite shot, but this is an example of one of the options you have.
How would you do transitions between clips?
Ooh, nice one. So transitions, there's several things we can do. The simplest way is to put them together like so. Click on the section in between and hit Command-T, which creates a cross dissolve, which often needs to be rendered. That is the really, really simple way of doing it, and I will show the complex way in a few seconds, once this renders.
Dum-de-dum. Rendering slow.
Oh,
when they say Macs are fast. Macs suck!
Well, this isn't a Mac Pro, so shut up. Okay, moving on. So now I hit play, and the little cross dissolve happens. I can also drag this and make it wider. It would need to be rendered again, but I'm not going to bother with that right now. And yeah, I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay, the other way of doing this is the long way, is of going up to Effect, down to Video Transitions, and I can choose from any of these like cheesy, god-awful transitions that are up here. Sort of.
Yeah, we're recording a Final Cut Pro tutorial.
So I'm going to go to 3D Simulate because I'm pretty sure these are like the absolute worst and cheesiest ones possible. I will render. And it's really just the same thing, only you've chosen a more exotic transition. Like the one that makes the previous piece of footage, like, I don't know, turn into birds and fly away or some crap like that. Some crap you would never ever use unless you were doing a direct parody of every single high school video you've ever seen. Oh god, that is stupid.
Why do they
Let's
even
rip.
have these?
I have no... You know, I don't... Moving on.
What about like separating the audio from the video?
Good point. Alright, so I'm going to bring my trusty mouse button over here to this green button. I'm going to click it. After I click it, the audio and video tracks, in reverse, are now separate from each other and can be moved around. So this is useful for, say, I just have a voice over here I want to use, or I just have one cutaway shot over here that I don't want any audio for, and I need to just paste that over for whatever reason I would want to. So that is how you would do that, and in order to link them back up, you just make sure they're back together again, and you notice the snapping allows that to happen. Deselect, hit the button again, and they are back as one happy family thing.
They put text on
Oh,
the video.
great question. Okay, so text. We're going to come over back to our viewer. There's this little button over here that has a little A on it. We're going to click on that. We have different things we can dump in, but we're just going to go to text. There's different kinds of text we can use, mostly based on the movement. I'm just going to go with text. The viewer now becomes the viewer now exists to show us this hypothetical file that we are starting to generate. It's going to say sample text. I'm going to move from the video tab to the controls tab. And here's all this fancy crap we can keyframe as far as the text controls are. Sample text up here. I'm going to type in something that makes sense. Go back to video, and it changes. I'm going to go back to controls. I can change things like its size over here, color. Go back, and it changes with us. Like any other file, once this thing is here, and I'm actually going to make its out point a lot smaller. Once it's here, I click, I drag, I bring down. If you drag it over a piece of, over a piece of nothing, you'll have a black background. If you drag it over the piece of text here, or the clip over here, it uses whatever is under it as the background. I'm going to render that. So that is how we generate text.
And how about like images, any kind of like, if you have, I guess an animation would be a video clip, but like images, static stuff, do the same thing? Shapes?
Yes. You can take any JPEG or most image files, and the same thing with most audio files, and you just kind of drag them into the browser and they become media that you can manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
Only in the case of both image and audio files, you drag one down, it will only appear in, it'll only appear in the video or audio form.
Mm-hmm.
And you pretty much have the exact same set of controls to manipulate that.
How do we export just video files and just audio files?
Ah, awesome.
And actually, how do we export the videos like for publishing?
So, okay, exporting
And for
videos.
YouTube?
There are, alright. My preferred way of doing that is actually using a completely different program, but I'm going to show you all how to do this in Final Cut because it's going to be easier. In the timeline, we select a few in and out points, and then once that is selected, we go up to File, Export, and these are a few different options that we could go to. I'm just going to say QuickTime Movie. This codec actually has a handful of problems right now, but whatever. So then I will choose my destination. I'm going to choose my name, which I want to make perfect sense. Current settings. These are the different codecs that you can choose from. And, oh, what's a nice one? I'm going to go with this one because I kind of know and used to trust it. Include audio and video. No markers. Hit save. And normally what would happen is, it would create the file and send it to that location, but there is not enough space on that drive, so we're not going to actually do that, but that is one way. It's the simpler way, but sometimes there are issues with that codec, so I'm going to show the awesome way. File. Send to compressor. Now what this does is it opens a brand new program that normally comes with Final Cut.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And this program exists for the sole purpose of holding Final Cut Pro's hand as it sends files to different formats. And it also works in reverse, but up here in this rectangle box, this represents our piece of footage, like right over there. We have this device gizmo that allows us to actually observe it. There we go. And then what happens is we look down into this box over here, where we see all of these different presets, all these different file formats that we can send in. There's even one that specifically says YouTube format. I've tried to use it a few times. It likes to crash on me, so fuck that. There's also DVD formats like these two over here, formats that exist for the sole purpose of creating files that only go on DVDs. They're a bitch to open in QuickTime. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to one of these happy-dappy all-purpose H.264s, and I click on it, and I drag it up here. Once it's here, I right-click on Source. You pretty much right-click and hit Destination, Other, and you just choose where on the computer or where on your drives you want the file to go.
Probably try to put it on Spider J.
I'm going to hit Cancel because I'm just going to say Spider J. Just going to dump it over there for now. Once it is there, I hit this little Submit button. Yeah, whatever. And then this progress bar down here will tell me that stuff. Okay, hold that thought. No. Okay, back to compressor. So this progress bar will then show me that it's writing the file. Half of this thing always zips along. Again, I've rendered 5-minute to half-hour long videos where it just kind of zipped through the first part in 30 seconds and spent an hour on the second half. So it exported successfully. So we're going to go to wherever the hell we saved it. There we go. So we're going to do this guy. Make sure it opens the Final Cut. So this is the file we made.
He has fought for the forces of good.
And just
His exploits
exported
are
through
legend.
compressor just like that. Ah, God, I still hate that transition. Okay. That just screams of fail. And that is that. So the extension of a Final Cut, there we go, FCP
Final Cut Project.
is
Original.
the extension name of a Final Cut Pro project. So,
Yay.
there's that. I'm going to quit out of that. Compressor files can be saved. I never do because fuck that.
How do we export just the audio file?
To export just the audio file, and I'm actually going to start by deleting the stuff on top. It is a very similar process. I'm going to isolate those two. File, export. And I'm going to start with audio to AIFs. And I can affect a few things here. Just going to, where are you?
Spider J.
Sequence 1. No, I'm going to call it GH. And save. And because that is such a small audio track, it's just going to go there almost instantly. Oh, there we go. And here we have this beautiful little AIF file, ideal for sticking into iTunes or playing with any other media player or moving anywhere else.
So AIF will be played by any media player?
It should be, yeah. And if not, you just choose a different format.
Okay.
And compressor should have audio formats like that you can use.
Okay. Do you have any?
Anything else?
I don't have any other questions.
Not me.
And with that,
Your name.
this is Space Badger signing out.